VikesNow, I am Dustin Baker. We got the Brohioan. I always thought it was Brohanian when I saw it on Twitter for all of these years, but it's the Brohioan. His name is Josh. He's here to talk about this Vikings team. How are you, man? First time guest.
Yeah, doing great, man. I've been up all day since 5 a.m. It's 11:30 here, so if I look tired, it's probably because I am. But yeah, this is awesome, man. I'm excited to be on here.
And tell me, in case we jump into these questions and forget, a little bit of your biography about, when did you become a Vikings fan and why?
It's funny. I wrote an article just for fun, right after the draft, kind of about that and leading up to the draft. But my dad's a diehard Bengals fan,
Okay.
and Bengals were the losingest team of the '90s. They sucked. Honestly, I loved Corey Dillon, but aside from watching him, they just weren't worth a shit. And I remember watching the draft with him in '98, and we live in kind of MAC territory, Miami, Ohio, and stuff like that. And he had actually went and watched Randy Moss play in college and shit. So yeah, in '98, and they had the draft. And when Randy Moss got picked by the Vikings, I remember sitting there with my dad and him just being like, holy shit, like, and I was just like kind of snapped into like what's going on, and I was bored, and he was like, this dude who's the best college wide receiver I've ever seen, just got drafted by the Vikings. And where I'm from the next town over from where Chris Carter's from.
Oh, sweet.
Right. And so he went to Ohio State too. So he was already on my radar a little bit. So I think just like, I know we joke around on Twitter a lot and say aura, but Randy Moss, man, he just entranced me as a kid, and he fooled me into into this life, this skull life here from Ohio, man. And honestly, up until a year and a half ago, I'd never even watched Vikings games with other Vikings fans. So I'd been on Twitter, really Vikings Twitter, for like the last 2 years, interacting with people. But before then, I was just like on Facebook, like screaming into the void, like all these people from Ohio, like, we don't give a shit about the Minnesota Vikings, dude. Just shut up. But yeah, I found my people, so it's been nice.
That's excellent. My story is similar. I lived in Houston, Texas for 3 years when the Houston Rockets were winning NBA championships, and the Oilers had just got done being pretty good. And we found out we were going to move to Minneapolis because of my stepdad's job in 1996. In that housing market, it took about a year for our house to sell. So because Warren Moon had just left the Oilers and gone to the Vikings, the Oilers were so bad that some of my friends were already cheering for the Vikings because they still like Warren Moon. And then they hyped me up when they found out I was moving to Minneapolis. And so I started cheering for the Vikings here and there as like a fifth and sixth grader. And then when I got to Minnesota, they made the playoffs in 96 and 97. And then to your point, I always say that Randy Moss solidified me as a Vikings fan for life. And it has to do with that aura. He was young and cocky, which was kind of what we aspired to be. And then it was just, he was so fantastic on top of it. So we got the parallel there.
Yeah, he was just dominant, man. And then you had John Randall, Chris Carter. I mean, I don't think the kids really realize how cool those '90s teams, late '90s teams made you feel as a Vikings fan, dude. But then the Falcons game happened, and we won't get into that. But that was the first time I experienced it, where it was like, okay, that wasn't supposed to happen. What the hell just happened?
That was not good, but very apropos trial by fire for me to have, because my mom grew up where I live now in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and she was a Vikings fan, just like the mom version of Vikings fan who watches when they're good. And when that happened, she was like, "This is what they always do," and I'm like, "What are you talking about? This is a game, like this is one." And she's like, "No, this is what they did when I was a kid," and then she was right. And so here we are, me at 40 years old, still living through some of that anguish. Brevin, how are you, man?
I'm pretty good. I've got a buddy in the Eastern time zone that knows the pain of these late Saturday segments, but we do it for the love of the grind. Because I'm gonna be awake anyway, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's like that with like Sunday night football, man. The Central time zone where it ends like closer to 10:30 would be great, but man, 11:30 at night and your team might lose and you're all upset and have to try to go to bed at midnight. It sucks. But
I get really mad with all the West Coast people getting mad that we play in London, like West Coast Vikings fans, because they have to wake up at 6:30. Like, when I have to watch the Wild and Timberwolves play, half their games start at 10:30, and I got to do that all year long. So you get one game where you got to wake up early?
Yep. I'm like that with basketball too, man. It's brutal.
Yep.
All right, why don't you launch into our questions for the Brohioan, also known as Josh? What do we got for him tonight?
Yeah, and this is kind of a tired topic at this point, but it's
It's
June.
appropriate.
Yeah, it's very appropriate, and it's June 1st, so we're probably not going to be done talking about it for a while. But where are you at? Like, are you scared, or just like general thoughts and feelings about the lack of a Justin Jefferson extension?
Dude, I'll be honest. I've not been nervous at all this whole time. Like Justin Jefferson, he's not done anything in his whole career to come off as like a diva. I know some people have tried to for some reason paint that picture of him. A position that's known for that. He's the best in the business, and he's not one of them. He's young. If you're not going to pay Justin Jefferson, who the hell are you going to pay? Like seriously, like he's a top 10, maybe top 5 player in the league. Like I'm not worried. And I've told people, like, I expect it, like, I'm thinking worst case scenario, like Nick Bosa right before the season started last year, where it was, everyone trying to see what they could get. Like, when you're resetting the market like that, there's a lot that goes into it, and I think they're just being more patient than us fans are. I really do. I don't think there's any reason to worry. I know the Minnesota curses and Randy Moss and Diggs and all that, but this really feels different. You get a young quarterback, and this is his best friend, and having a quarterback on a rookie deal, you can afford to pay people. And when you have a top 5 player in the league, that's who you're going to pay. Like, I have no doubts they'll get it done. I'll be nervous if the season starts and it's not done, but up all the way until the season, I really expect it right before the season starts.
Yeah, and breaking news, like there's a lot of things that go into giving a player over $35 million per year deal.
Exactly.
And there's so many factors at play. Like we don't know if JJ and CD are waiting each other out, if their camps are waiting each other out because they both need contracts at the same time. Jamar Chase not really as much of a factor because he was drafted a year later, but I won't go too much into it. But a lot of people don't know that Justin Jefferson is like in a court case right now, some kind of like paternity suit thing, and that's why he was in New Jersey when those rumors were floating around. And we touched on it on the social network earlier. Jason brought up a great point that Eric Spoelstra had agreed to like a long-term agreement to be the head coach of the Miami Heat, had agreed to a long-term extension way before they announced it. And that's because he was in the middle of a divorce settlement.
Yeah.
And if they had announced that he had signed the dotted line, that would have been like way more money he was out. So not commenting on whether or not Justin Jefferson is in the correct of whatever this case is, because I don't know everything about it. I'm just saying that could be a reason. Like, there's just so many things we don't know when it comes to a player signing a $140 million contract.
Exactly. Everyone seems calm. I feel like everything's in control. Like I said, I just feel like they're just being more patient than us. And CD not signing his yet. I mean, at least we have the best guy who's wanting paid like the best. Where CD's wanting paid like the best, then he's probably a top 5 or fringe top 5 guy. But like, we're actually, getting the best. So like, I have no problems paying those guys, taking our time and getting it done right, and making sure everyone's happy. Because if not, who's saying a year or two, he is actually disgruntled, so let's just be patient, get it right. I'm very optimistic about the future. Very, like, I feel a lot of hope. Like I think people are sleeping on our roster. Like I'm excited. I don't know how you couldn't be, to be honest with you.
This is my updated Jefferson speech. I want to start by saying that Jefferson in New Jersey, that ML football tweet, that was my favorite rumor of the offseason because it operated under the logic that players can just go chat with teams about trades. Like, oh, he's away right there by the headquarters. As if you can just, hey, you know what? I kind of like the Washington Commanders. Let's go talk with them and see what they give for me. That's not how the sport works, folks. But I love that people bought into that. I firmly believe in the CeeDee Lamb thing, because I think they're doing the Spider-Man meme at each other. Like, you're going to get 33, so I'm going to ask for 34. So I think there's a little bit of a standoff. And then the Vikings always do this with big extensions. They wait. Usually it's like the Saturday or Friday before the season starts. I don't know the voodoo behind it. Hawkinson's went into early September. Dalvin Cook's was the day before the regular season in 2020, I believe. So there's precedent for this. It might be a Wilfs thing and not necessarily a Rick Spielman thing. And then during the draft lead up, Kevin O'Connell was asked by, I think, PFT Live about Jefferson trade stuff. And O'Connell said, like, no, there was nowhere on this planet that he had contemplated trading Justin Jefferson. So it's one thing for Spielman speak to say, I expect him to be a part of this roster, or whatever it was, the Spielman quote. And then Kwesi Adofo-Mensah said he wanted Jefferson to have like his birthday month when it came to the contract signing. And he says that Jefferson deserves to be compensated as the best. So there's not any mystery about will they or won't they. We're just inundated with multiple articles weekly about, hey, the Bleacher Report says that Jefferson can go play for the Bengals and we get T. Higgins back. Like, there's just so much fodder on the what if that through osmosis, we're almost like, is this thing really going to happen? And you got to think about it. Are the Vikings really going to go into an era with a 21-year-old rookie quarterback and their solution is to trade the best weapon in football? I mean, we are too dumb to read into this. Like, you really think that's going to happen? I think it's just taking so long. And because of the precedent that that Josh mentioned between Harvin, Diggs, and Moss, were paranoid, rightfully so, but this isn't quite like that. Jefferson is a different breed. Moss is standalone, but he was getting near the end of his tenure and his deal in general. So I am right there with you, Josh. I don't have any anxiety about JJets being here for the long term.
Yeah, Diggs was disgruntled. He wanted out. Moss, they had his issues. Percy had his issues. Justin's never felt like that. Mm-hmm. Justin has been a pro's pro since the day he stepped in there, man. And like the whole fan base loves that dude. He brings the energy. Well, it's gonna get done. People just need the deep breaths.
Yep. It's a humongous deal, and to some degree, it's like kudos for everybody doing their diligence. All right, the next thing I got, kind of out of nowhere was it Wednesday? Dalton Risner is back, and this is something that the fan base has asked for about 4 months, and coincidentally, that's how long they asked for him last year before he signed for the first time. So I want to know from you, I'm guessing you enjoy the move. Anytime we get offensive line immortality, pass protection-wise, we're going to be overjoyed. But there was some rumors, or not rumors, there were some theories from some credible folks that said, Blake Brandel, he's still pretty damn good. This could be a camp battle. Do you think this will be an honest-to-goodness camp battle, or is that just like, pro Brandel fodder?
I like Brandel. Like, I'm not saying I think he's got a little bit of promise. I think Risner's probably better, but competition, man, we all know that that's what breeds the best. To have someone pushing you, it makes you better. I think it's going to be a legit battle, and let's be honest, our interior line needs it. It's gotten better, but it's still a work in progress. And Risner's great as a pass blocker, but he struggles a little bit against the run. So if Brandel's a little bit more, balanced, they might go with him. Or, they might say, if Brandel's better run blocking, and they realize Darnold, he can actually move, unlike Kirk, then pass blocking might not be as big of a deal, quite so much. So I expect it to be an actual battle. Like, they seemed like they liked Brandel, and honestly, when he stepped in and played, I haven't been like, get him the hell out of there. Like, he haven't really noticed him like too much or anything. So like, I like the move, man. Any depth on the O-line, like, I'm a big trenches guy, and any depth we have on there, and I like what we're doing there. We could still be better, but it's not anything I'm like super concerned about either.
We have scars from the Zimmer era about the offensive line, particularly the interior. So it's really cool when a guy like David Quesenberry shows up against the Falcons and like doesn't seem like some big downgrade from Brian O'Neill. We're like, holy shit, this is how this works sometimes? Because we were just so used to the doom. First of all, not even having a good guard. And then when you have his asshole backup come in, you're like, oh, so he's worse. This is why he doesn't play. So I am excited to have a little bit of depth. Brevin, I haven't heard your thoughts on Risner. You and I haven't chatted since last week. What say you? Is this Risner's job, or are we going to have a real battle?
I think it should be a battle. You brought up the Zimmer era, and I think I would have taken my shirt off and done a twirl for you guys for this offensive line that the Vikings have if they had that during the Zimmer era. Mm-hmm. So the situation that they're in, like I'm not excited that they re-signed Risner, but like it's the right move to do.
Why aren't
Like
you excited?
uh,
You
it's
think he's
it's
mid?
no, it's just like whatever. Like
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of how I feel in a way, but it's depth and competition, so it's like not bad.
yeah,
It's like he's a decent player, not anything crazy,
yeah.
but
I'm excited about the competition because that's what it should be, especially at the guard spots and how that's been the weakness the last couple of years. But like I say I'm whatever about it because if Reisner didn't resign, I would have been like whatever. Like either way, they would have done it.
same
Like
What if for both of yous, Josh, I'll start with you. Wednesday, if your phone said Hunter Renfrow, would you rather it say that or Reisner as notification?
man, that's tough. Honestly,
I'm pretty easily Renfro. I'm not gonna lie.
for me, I don't know. Maybe Renfro, but I don't. I love Brandon Powell. I'm a Gators fan. He played for the Gators. He played for the Gators. He kind of was put in like a kind of a Percy Harvin type role for us, where he kind of takes some jet sweeps. He's coming out of the backfield, punt return, kick return. He kind of did it all, man. And he, as you guys got to know him a little last year, you see he's a dog. He ain't afraid to get in the dude's face. He ain't afraid to chirp it up a little bit, man. So I love Brandon Powell as like a fourth guy and a punt returner. I would like to see us upgrade the third, but I think I'd still go trenches for now. I think we got weapons, man. I like our weapons, and our third wide receiver, we do run a lot of 3 wide receiver sets, but I don't know, man. I'm super excited about Aaron Jones getting catches out of the backfield. I like our roster. Everyone else seems to be sleeping on it a little bit, and I don't know everyone else's roster, so maybe we are like the 22nd best roster, but I don't look at our roster and like, man, this team's bad. Like I think it's pretty good. I know the quarterback's the question mark, but if Darnold even plays decent, we should be fighting for a playoff spot for real. Like I really believe that.
Did it ever come out how much the deal is? It's only a 1-year deal, so it doesn't matter.
Not yet.
It ain't much.
No, it hasn't come out yet. My hot take is that Brandel will either be a battle or insurance for Ed Ingram, because I don't know how I've developed this opinion. I don't know if it's right or not, but Risner seems like left guard or bust. Like, don't even throw his ass over to the right side. I think that's because he's a career left guard guy, and maybe it's because we thought he was going to take Ingram's job, and then he flat out just took Ezra Cleveland's because of injury. So that's my tinfoil hat thing, is that Risner is back, and that's his job. And then if there's going to be a battle, it's going to be Blake Brandel versus Ed Ingram, because not long ago, Blake Brandel was a tackle, and we were like, sweet, he's a pretty good backup tackle. So he has that versatility, and I'm not convinced that Risner has that versatility, and I really don't care. I like him, the fact that he can pass protect. That's what we asked for 7-8 years, is get me a guy who can pass protect. I don't give a shit about run blocking. We already got that, and now we got it. And so I'm glad that somebody finally got the hint. So we'll take it. Let's see. I was going to say something. Oh, yeah. I was going to say how you're excited about this roster. The way that I look at that like-minded excitement on this end is when Cousins left with the Achilles tear, the Vikings were 4-4. We tend to glamorize how good we were at that moment. It's like, well, he looked great in those final 2 games, but the team was only 4-4. So if Kevin O'Connell can drag a team to 7-10 with Cousins, who was only at 500 there, with Joshua Dobbs, with Jaron Hall, and Nick Mullins, I think that between Darnold and McCarthy, that 7-10 or 6-11 should be the bottom floor, because I don't look at this roster and think just like you, John. I don't think like, oh God, this is a bunch of assholes. Hopefully they get better next year. I think it's like, oh, this is a really good depth chart. And if Darnold does the Baker Mayfield thing, or McCarthy is like Stroud in year 1, they can do a lot of good stuff.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree, dude. It is a good roster, and last year going into the season, the defense was a big question mark. We knew we upgraded with Flores, but like someone's gonna step up like Cam Bynum did this year. I would have never dreamed Cam Bynum would have taken the step that he did, man, and he did. He turned into a borderline star at times last year, and I expect someone else to kind of come up. Like Mike Metellus stepped up last year. Everyone who knows me knows I'm big on him, but Ivan Pace Jr. is going to have.
Oh, he's from your neck of the woods.
Oh, yeah, dude. I've known about him since I just wrote an article about him. He, went to high school not far from here, and I've been following him all the way up to now, dude. I've been screaming at everybody like, this kid's a dog. He's been doubted his whole football career because of his height. One of the best players in one of the best football states, wasn't getting offers and shit, because of his height. And that followed all the way to the NFL. Dude was a unanimous All-American, UC's first ever unanimous All-American, a school that's had the Kelsey brothers, you know what I mean? And he went undrafted, man. And these guys are just always trying to find these athletic freaking natures. And sometimes, hey, being 5'10" and able to do the shit he does, he's a different kind of freaking nature, And I hope they blitz him a little bit more this year. I think he's elite at that. And, we just have so many options, man, on the defensive side of the ball. So many shiny toys for Brian Flores to play with. And I fully expect one of the young corners to kind of take Mekhi Blackman or Kyrie Jackson would be who I would hope. But I think one of them is going to take a next step up. And if they do, then, man, we should be really good on that side.
With Ivan Pace is kind of like me with Logan Thomas, the tight end. I think
yeah.
He's still with Washington. He was the quarterback at Virginia Tech, and I had a cousin that went to high school with him because he's from my neck of the woods. And of course, we didn't draft him, and he ended up not playing quarterback in the NFL. But he was an electric quarterback. That's when Virginia Tech was relevant in college football. But yeah, I feel for you there, except Ivan Pace is on our team, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, dude, it is really cool. We've had a couple, Cincinnati area boys on the Vikings team, and they typically do well. Chris Carter, Kyle Rudolph's from Cincinnati, Jordan Hicks. Actually, Jordan Hicks played pretty solid at times last year for us too, so
great.
Yeah, so it's kind of cool whenever we have that connection. There's been some Bengals, Vikings connections, Zimmer coming over and stuff. That stuff's always cool to me. But yeah, dude, I'm high on our roster. Ivan Pace Jr. I think is going to really light it up this year.
Yeah, Christian Darrisaw is from here too, and I'm a recruiter. So I was at a job fair the other day for my work, and I was talking to this guy about football, and he was like, "I'm a Vikings fan," and he was like, "Oh, you know Christian Darrisaw?" I was like, "Yeah." So yeah, I went to high school with him.
No, I don't know who that is.
No, I have no idea.
All right, we got time for two more, Brevin. What do you got?
Yeah, what I guess is general your feelings about the schedule, if there's anything you love about it, anything you hate about it, since that got released a couple weeks ago.
It's not an easy schedule, but I don't think it's anything too crazy. The thing that sucks about it is our defense is tough. Our division is tough, man. Our division, it feels like all the teams have a chance to be pretty decent to good, and I don't know that since I've been a fan, if that's been the case, someone's been pretty bad. And, a lot of people think we'll be the ones to finish last, but I kind of don't think so. It don't usually work out how you expect, and all that. But, with our third place, schedule and stuff, who do we play? The AFC South? Is it the Texans, Colts, Titans? That division doesn't really move me. I think the Texans are good on the right track, but Jaguars are okay. Titans could be good. They made some moves, but Colts, our division is what's tough, and I actually kind of like it. I like that it's going to force us to be aggressive and try to, be better and keep up with these other teams, man, and not feel like we can just coast past the Lions and shit like that. So, it's not like an easy schedule, but it's not terrible either. I don't think. I think we'll be fighting for a playoff spot, man. I really do.
If they can get over the hump of, I think it's Thursday Night Football against the Rams in week 8, if they can get through that somewhere around 500, while Darnold or McCarthy is decent and not some moron, then the schedule, you can look at it and be like, hey, now, that's over. Now we can actually beat some of these sons of bitches. That's how it's staggered. Even the 3-game road stand isn't Murderer's Row. Then you come home for home cooking for 3. So that's how I'm looking at it. Now, I don't know if they'll be around 500 when they get there. It all depends on, like you talked about, Josh, if Darnold's good. The only thing that is the big hinge on this football team is the quarterback, because
Yeah.
we're so accustomed to Cousins' dependability. And even if he wasn't an all-pro guy, you knew that he was going to be pretty darn good most of the time. Right now, we're kind of like, oh, we hope somebody's good.
Yeah.
All right, my final thing for you. I did a lot of research on this today, so I wanted to pick your brain. I know the Minnesota Vikings draft capital piggy bank is diminished because of the
Yeah.
Dallas Risner trade. So next year you pull up the inventory of draft picks and you shut the book real quick because you're like, shit. But Kwesi Adofo-Mensah loves to trade, and I believe if there's a will, there's a way. If he wants to bring players aboard, if he wants to ship some out, there's a lot of guys that can get got for like a 6th rounder in 2026. I want to know, if the Vikings pull off any trade this summer, what will it be?
I was thinking about it, and I don't know that they will, just because of, like you said, the draft capital, probably trying to save a lot of it, and our roster being a little bit better. I think they want to be competitive this year, obviously, but I think they know deep down it's kind of probably a transition year, getting things ready for the future. But one name that I wrote down that it's not like a big splash name or anything, but just the scheme he's in, his size, his pay and everything. Juan Jennings from the 49ers, man. He's got some size to him. He plays in the Shanahan offense. He's a good run blocker. Our wide receivers are good, but we do not have any wide receiver size. Luckily, we got tight ends for that. But yeah, he was a guy I was looking at just with his, because they just signed Pearsall. They have Debo still. They got Ayuk still. They still got Ayuk, right? They didn't trade him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so he's someone who I could see if they're like, what we kind of do. We're not comfortable with Hunter Renfrow. I don't know. I liked him. I think they got a crowded room. I don't expect us to trade, but he was just someone who I just thought would be kind of a good fit. He's a good role player from a winning culture with some size at a position we don't have much, and he does the little things right. So he was a guy that.
What's his tie to Ohio or Cincinnati?
Who?
None. He doesn't have any. Jennings. That's your precursor. That's mandatory.
Yeah, and then for just like a fun one that's like trade that is like very unlikely, I know, and I'm not a numbers guy. I might on Twitter sometimes be like, oh, here's some numbers, and try to pretend I'm a numbers guy with like salary caps and shit. I'm not. I don't care. So this one's just for fun, as someone who I just think would put us over the top. But if the Colts come out and they're not looking too hot, and they've been trying to do the same old for a few years, DeForest Buckner would make our defense just the next. I mean, he would just be a home run fit for us, man. And that's kind of the spot on the defense where it's like, we'll see. Maybe Jerry Tillery. He's got some promise. But that a little beef on the D line, some run stoppers and stuff like that, man, he would be the guy who, if they somehow pulled something off for him, he's getting a little bit older. He's a leader. If they're looking to rebuild possibly, and we can spread money out, he is a guy who it would really put our defense over the top.
Yeah, if I recall correctly, at the beginning of the offseason, he was chirped about as a possible guy who could be on the move. I don't think I understood why. I don't know if it was money related or if they have somebody waiting to take over, but there was legs to that in general, not necessarily to the Vikings, but I think it's out there that he could be. Brevin, did you want to renew one of your trade theories or offer one more for the weekend?
I mean, just with where this roster's at, it's kind of hard to think. If they're making trades, I would think, especially if they're trading away, it'd be like trying to trade away some of the failed draft picks to this point. So, like, if they're trying to trade Lewis Seen for a 7th round pick in 2026 to some poor bastard team that would do that. Because I know you and Tyler talked about like a Seen for Treylon Burks trade straight up. I think Minnesota would be absolutely fleecing Tennessee if they were to do that, just because I like Treylon Burks that much. I know the production's not there, but I don't know, like if you're unloading Scene, if Booth gets beat out in camp, there's no room for him if you can trade him for something. But if you're getting something in return to like get a legitimate piece for the team, I would be looking at defensive tackle. Like I'd echo what John from Bite Size said a couple weeks ago. If you can get Jonathan Allen, just because there's a lot of cooks in that kitchen in Washington, and maybe I can make the 45-minute drive up to DC and talk to him about it on behalf of our Vikings. I don't know, but
After you take Jefferson to New York to get that trade done.
yeah, take him to the Will's house. Yeah, I don't know. It's just the roster. Not saying I don't like where the roster's at, but you look at the roster and you've got young talent, but there's not a ton of people to trade away. Like, did this year you have to re-sign? I remember looking at all the people that are expiring after the season, and like Cam Bynum was the most pressing one to re-sign. No offense to Cam Bynum, but I don't see a world where if you're trading people away that are on expiring deals because you don't think you're going to re-sign them, like this year, there's not really many people. So I don't know. This team is in a weird spot. The most likely scenario would be, like I said, trading away some of the draft picks that didn't pan out. Like I don't know if anybody would trade for Brian Asamoah for a 7th round pick this year. I don't know. Just trying to recoup something.
What happened with him? Ivan
Pace happened.
Yeah, that happened. I thought he'd get some playing time, and
they went with Dye.
Yeah, it just
Vikings fans like hyped him up a lot. And I know you want to hype up the people that you're drafting, but like I never saw it with Asamoah. I never bought into it, so
he had like that big forced fumble. Was that in the Colts game or something? Giants. Okay, that's right. Yeah, I remember that, but other than that, I don't really remember too much.
Well, here's my rapid fire list, and this is pretty long, so I'll be quick. Terrace Marshall Jr. from the Panthers can probably get got for a 7th rounder. He's trending towards like WR5 or WR6 behind Deontay Jones, Adam Thielen, or it's Deontay Johnson.
Deontay Johnson,
yeah. Adam Thielen, Xavier Leggetti, Jonathan Mingo. He can probably get got for a 7th round pick. There's also like 7 Giants receivers after Neighbors that are all like the same guy. So maybe you pick the guy you want and send a 7th there, or just wait until roster cut down because not all of them are going to make the team. If you want an extra draft pick, you can probably send Nick Mullins for a 7th to a place like the Chargers, who have Easton Stick as their backup. There'd be a immediate upgrade. Devon Godshaw from the Patriots is a guy with ties to Brian Flores. He's a true nose tackle, like 335 pounds. Vikings don't have one. I think he can probably get got for a 6th rounder. Roy Robertson Harris from the Jaguars. They drafted 2 defensive tackles, one in round 2, and one in round 4. He feels like the odd man out. He's like 30, 31, so he probably only costs about a 6th. Cortland Sutton always feels like he's orphaned in Sean Payton's offense, at least for priority. He can probably be finagled for a 5th, would be my guess. Tutu Atwell, if you play fantasy football, he was pretty sweet for like 2 or 3 weeks last season. He was on the team when Kevin O'Connell and the gang won a Super Bowl. He's probably a conditional 6th or 7th guy for a trade. Maurice Hurst on the Browns just got re-signed, but then they drafted Michael Hall, who I'm sure Josh knows all about. He should be already on the depth chart behind Michael Hall. And Kwesi has ties to the Browns. You could probably get him for a 6th. Jonathan Allen is near the top of my list. I think the price for him, because he had kind of a shitty year last year, and he's 29, and he's expensive, would be like a 4th and a 5th. Might have to be a 3rd, but probably a 4th and a 5th. And then the one that Tyler and I cooked up together, Treylon Burks for Lewis Cine, makes all the sense in the world because the Titans need safety depth, and Treylon Burks, we think, would be immediately a WR3 for the Vikings. So that is my spoiler alert. Article hasn't even published yet. Speaking of articles, I didn't ask you this, Josh, at the top of the show. Where do you write? Where can we find your stuff?
Eric, I write for Eric, Minnesota sports fans, man. He just kind of hit me up one day and was just like, hey, dude, like, I see the stuff you post and stuff. Would you ever be interested in writing? And I'm like, listen, man, I'm someone who I love to write, but it's kind of just when something comes to me, I don't like force things. I just like with the draft happening and how big that was. I mean, that was the biggest draft in our history that I can remember. Like, it felt like it was something I wanted to write about. And Ivan Pace, I feel like I have a unique look into, his come up and even the pre-draft, high school, college stuff. So I just thought it'd be kind of a fun, article to have like for that. So it's just a hobby, something for fun every now and then. I don't know when I'll do it again, but yeah, I make sure to post them and stuff.
Awesome. All right, and it's the Brohioan on Twitter.
Yes.
MinnesotaSportsFan.com once in a while when you're feeling ambitious to write.
Yep.
Brevin, are we leaving anything out before we log off?
I don't think so, unless we wanted that bold summer prediction from.
Oh, you got a real quick bold summer prediction, Josh? Did you finagle one of those?
Oh, man, I did have one up. You know what? I'm not ready to give up on Jalen Naylor.
Okay.
I think Jalen Naylor could possibly surprise this year. Maybe that's just me being optimistic and hoping one of those other wide receivers steps up. But I felt like I saw someone saying something positive about him.
Alec Lewis.
Okay, so I don't know. Maybe I just saw that, and it's like, you know what? That maybe he's got a chance. I don't know. Maybe that's why they haven't signed another wide receiver. They think he could step up. I don't know. But yeah, that'll be mine.
I think they either trust their depth. They got all kinds of receivers. They got 13 altogether. And I'll continue to pound home all this summer on that roster cutdown day, the way that it's structured now, everybody gets released on the same day. Even after practice squad designations, there's going to be 750 free agents. And either our Giants theory that we just cooked up or in general, there's going to be WR3s. All right, Devin, I will be gone for the next 2 weeks in Norway. So
who's Devin?
Devin? Did I say Devin?
You said that.
I sound like you complaining about being tired and too damn late.
Yeah.
Brevin, I will be back on this show on a Saturday night in a few weeks. Josh, I want to say thanks for joining us. You should let us know if you enjoy. You should come back sometime in July and start talking about training camp.
Absolutely, it was a blast, man. I was ready to yell at whoever was making me get on this late, but you know what? I'm wide awake. It went perfect. I loved it. I'll definitely be back.
Awesome. All right, you guys take it easy and have a wonderful weekend.
Yeah, you too, bud.
Yeah.